Make this sourdough bread with me, you guys. Look at how beautiful she looks. Let me show you how I made it. So here I am pouring my sourdough starter inside my bowl. And you want to have a large bowl. Then you're going to proceed with your water. I'm adding the water. And I'm using the spatula to mix it at the beginning vigorously. But then you're gonna see that I'm gonna change to a whisk because we wanna make sure that none of the starter stays stuck at the bottom. We want it all mixed in and look like this creamy mixture. Here I'm adding the flour. And I'm using a scale, as you can see. I'm actually learning how to use the scale. I baked for years, but never used a scale, and I kind of gave in. I think to bake sourdough bread, the best thing is to use a scale. But I am going to give you the measurements in grams and in cups at the end of this video. Here I'm adding my salt, pink Himalayan salt, but you can use whatever salt you use in your kitchen. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the scale because I don't need it anymore. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix the dough. And you don't wanna do too much with it. Just mix it until it's all incorporated, until all of the flour and water are absorbed. You see it looks like what we call a shaggy dough. And I probably could have used a little bit of less water
first,
but you're gonna see why. This is my first stretch and fold after about 45 minutes of leaving the dough covered. We're gonna do 3 rounds of the stretch and pulls. You just go around the bowl, stretching and pulling the dough. You cover it and you let it sit for another 45 minutes. And we do our second stretch and fold, or stretch and pull. So you can leave anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour in between each of these. And again, I do 3, you can do 4. I think 3 is usually pretty common with the recipes I've seen. And you can see my dough is still kind of sticky. Once it started out this way, I already knew she was overhydrated. In other words, I probably added extra water by mistake, but that's okay. This is my third and final stretch and pull. And what we're doing here is recreating layers, okay? When we do this, again, leaving between 45 minutes to an hour in between. And you can even, if you're in a rush, you don't want to forget, you can even just do it every 30 minutes. So after this third and final stretch and pull, you can see that the dough is a little bit more together, a little bit tighter. And I'm just learning, you guys, so I want you guys to learn with me. I've made quite a few loaves, but still just working on it, and every time it comes out different. So at this point, I had let it sit overnight on the counter after the third round of stretch and pull. And I put a little bit of flour on my counter before I dumped this, and as you can see, it looks like a big web. And this is what I have seen the sourdough experts call an overproofed or overhydrated dough, but we're still going with it. Here I'm just stretching out the dough into like a rectangle, and you can see she's still sticking to me a little bit, but that's okay. I'm still going with it. And here I'm just gonna fold her into each other, so it's like you fold in one side to the middle of the rectangle, and then you fold in the other side. Pretty simple. This is the technique I've been using, or the method I've been using. I've seen a bunch of other ways that people fold in their dough. I'm just, again, learning, and I'm doing just this one method. Once I learn this one, then I guess I'll try other ways of folding the dough. So since she was still you know, sticky. I could tell she was overhydrated. I wanted to just help myself here with that tool. But you'll see as I'm just rolling her up in a ball, she's still giving me a little bit of a hard time, but that's okay. And you're just gonna pretty much stretch her and continue to pull her. And then you're gonna be doing these kind of tucking, creating tension, and bringing her over just like I'm doing here towards you. And then I'm using this tool again to help me pick it up and put her in the banneton. Now this banneton I got on Amazon. If you don't have a banneton, you can just use a regular bowl. Just make sure you put a rag or a kitchen towel and you put flour on it before you drop the dough in there because you don't want it to stick. And then I'm putting a little bit more flour on top.
But at this point, I don't want to mess with
I'm just kind of pinching her, making sure her seams are closed. At this point, I put her in the refrigerator covered, and she was in the refrigerator for about 10 hours. Now I'm getting ready to bake her. So what I did was I preheated. I have my oven preheated at 475 degrees. And you kind of gotta learn your oven temperature a little bit. I see a lot of people baking these at 500 degrees. My oven just runs way too hot. So I settled for 475. And she looks pretty good. She doesn't look too flat, but still, again, she could have been a little bit plumpier. So I think this means she was overproof, but that's all right. I have to keep telling myself that it is okay. I'm just learning. So here I'm using this scoring tool. I think it's called the llama. And it's just a really sharp blade. And people make all kinds of pretty designs on their dough. With this one, I'm just keeping it simple. I just did across all the way on both sides. I'm using today my cast iron skillet. I initially was using my Dutch oven, the top that has a lid on it. And I was baking it for about 30 minutes with the lid on and then taking the lid off and baking it for another 20 to 25 minutes. But I find that this method also has worked really well for me. And it's not as heavy. The pot is not as heavy. So here she's going into the oven. That pan that's under it has been preheating with the oven while she was on. And now all I did is I added some water to create steam. And this is going to help with the crust of the bread. And look at her. She came out amazing. Here what I'm doing is I'm taking the temperature of the bread to make sure that she's fully cooked inside and not raw. So she's over 200 Fahrenheit degrees, which is perfect. She's about 204. And now we're gonna cut into her.
So it's the next morning. I baked it last night and I let it sit on the counter. She looks beautiful. Let's cut into her and see what she looks like inside. Wow, amazing. I love it. She came out perfect. Let's try this, what everybody does. So the crumb is not as open, but I like that. I didn't leave it to ferment too long in the refrigerator. I did leave it out on the counter a lot the day before, but I think it came out pretty nice. It smells delicious. There you have it.